Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Hare. Rama. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Gurudev. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Gurudev. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Kodanitai, Maya Poshashi, Kodanitai, Maya Poshashi. Jaya Kodanitai, Maya Poshashi, Kodanitai, Maya Poshashi. Iskang Guru Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Shri Kodanitai, Maya Poshashi Ki Jai, Gantara Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. So reading from Srila Prabhupada Lamrita, this is chapter 4, In Every Town and Village. After a few weeks in San Francisco, Swamiji went to Los Angeles, where a small group of his disciples had opened a storefront temple in a middle-class black and Hispanic neighborhood. The storefront was bare and the location secluded. Swamiji stayed there 2 months, delivering lectures, holding kirtans, and giving strength and inspiration to his disciples. Although a buzzing in his head made working difficult, he found the warm climate and sunshine agreeable, and he continued to translate Srimad Bhagavatam. In May, a few months after leaving Los Angeles, Swamiji paid a first visit to his ISKCON center in Boston. There also he found a few disciples based in a small storefront. It was in Swamiji's room one day in Boston that he accepted the name Prabhupada. While his secretary was taking dictation, Prabhupada mentioned that the affixed G was a third-class address. Then why do we call you Swamiji? What should we call you? A spiritual master, Swamiji replied, is usually addressed by names like Gurudev, Vishnupad, or Prabhupada. May we call you Prabhupada? Yes. At first, some of the devotees were reluctant to give up the long-cherished Swamiji, which for them was a name of affection. I heard we shouldn't use the name Swamiji anymore, one of the boys asked one morning on a walk. Who said? Prabhupada replied quickly. They said, you said it was third class and we shouldn't say it. I never said that. Then can we use it? Yes, that is all right. But Swamiji soon disappeared. The devotees even printed an explanation in Back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada ki. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 8, the Narayan Kavacha Shield, and it's text 20. Mam Keshavo Gadaya Prata Avyad. Mam Keshavo Gadaya Prata Avyad. Govinda Asangavam Ata Venu. Govinda Asangavam Ata Venu. Narayana Prana Udata Shaktiya. Narayana Prana Udata Shaktiya. Madhyan Dine Vishnu Arindra Pani. Madhyan Dine Vishnu Arindra Pani. Mam Keshavo Gadaya Prata Avyad. Govinda Asangavam Atavenu. Narayana Prana Uttata Shaktiya. Madhyandane Vishnu Arindrapani. Mam Keshavo Gadaya Prata Avyad. Govinda Asangavam Atavenu. Narayana Prana Uttata Shaktiya. Bhajandane Vishnu Arindrapani. Mam Keshavo Gadaya Prata Avyad. Govinda Asangavam Atavenu. Narayana Prana Uttata Shaktiya. Bhajandane Vishnu Arindrapani. Mam, me. Keshava, Lord Keshava. Gadaya, by his club. Prata, in the morning hours. Avyat, may he protect. Govinda, Lord Govinda. Asangavam, during the second part of the day. Artavenu, holding his flute. Narayana, Lord Narayan with 4 hands. Prana, during the third part of the day. Udatta Shakti, controlling different types of potencies. Madhyam Dine, during the fourth part of the day. Vishnu, Lord Vishnu. Arindrapani, bearing the disc in his hand to kill the enemies. Translation: may Lord Keshava protect me with his club in the first portion of the day, and may Govinda, who is always engaged in playing his flute, protect me in the second portion of the day. May Lord Narayan, who is equipped with all potencies, protect me in the third part of the day. And may Lord Vishnu, who carries a disc to kill his enemies, protect me in the fourth part of the day. So responsibly, please. May Lord Keshava protect me with his club in the first portion of the day. And may Govinda, who is always engaged in playing his flute, protect me in the second portion of the day. May Lord Narayan, who is equipped with all potencies, protect me in the third part of the day. And may Lord Vishnu, who carries a disc to kill his enemies, protect me in the fourth part of the day. Purport Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. According to Vedic astronomical calculations, day and night are each divided into 30 gatikas, 24 minutes, instead of 12 hours. Generally, each day and each night is divided into 6 parts consisting of 5 gatikas. In each of these 6 portions of the day and night, the Lord may be addressed for protection according to different names. Lord Keshava, the proprietor of the holy place of Mathura, is the Lord of the first portion of the day, and Govinda, the Lord of Vrindavan, is the master of the second portion. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Melitanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Srivas Adi Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchikalpatrubhischa Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Paditanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. So Srila Prabhupada is referring to Gatikas, which I've never heard of before, although I've read the Bhagavatam a few times. But I think it just struck me now. So it's 24 minutes, and the day is broken down into 24 sections. Each is, 30. So it's 30 24s that comprises a day, instead of 12 hours. So generally each day and night is divided into 6 parts, and each has 5 Gatikas in it. So that's interesting. So Srila Prabhupada wanted the Vedic planetarium built to challenge the scientific view of the world and to show that we have a superior understanding. So here we see how time is being explained differently than how we're used to it. So I thought it was interesting that this is Vishvarupa explaining to the demigods all the different ways that they can gain protection. So when he starts off explaining to the demigods, he's saying how Lord Rishabdev will protect us from heat and cold, Yogya from defamation. So he's identifying particular personalities that will protect us from particular dangers. So that's interesting in itself, that it can be so elaborate, so complex, and so intricate. Which for the demigods is fine because they are very elevated, so they have sufficient intelligence to grasp all these different details. For us in Kali Yuga, it's maybe a little bit more difficult to implement that. But now he's shifting over Vishvarup from identifying particular identity, particular dangers that particular identities can protect you from, and now he's going into just general times that you can be protected. So you can be protected at this time of the day from whatever it happens to be, and this time of the day from whatever it happens to be by this personality. So really, it's like one layer of protection after another. We just had a mental health first aid meeting, and they're asking at the end, they'd like to do some meditation. And what's appealing to them is this idea of a kavacha, that they can have a shield. They can do this meditation, and then when they go out to face the challenges that they have to being a mental health first aid worker, then they can have some kind of a shield in place so that they can be resilient. And they can deflect negative energies because they're sometimes dealing with very negative people and situations. Vishvarup's really giving the demigods every aspect of protection possible. And it's successful because the demigods, then they come out of that invincible, and the demons have to relinquish. They took over, and then again they were driven out. So Krishna explains that the cause of all fear, and therefore all danger, is ignorance. That's the main. Shiva Ramaj is doing a series of talks right now on what is knowledge and what is ignorance. So interestingly enough, knowledge isn't what is being taught in the educational system. What is being taught, unfortunately, is ignorance. So that's interesting, isn't it? Because ignorance, the essence of ignorance is forgetfulness of God. Because first of all, you've got to establish there is a God, and then you can be forgetful of Him. So they haven't even got to the point where they think they're forgetful of God, because they don't think there's anything to be forgetful of. So that's quite deep down now. Okay, let's at least get to the point. Okay, we're at the point now where we accept there's a God. Okay, now the challenge is, how are we going to remember Him? Okay, we believe He's there to one degree or another. So now how are we going to remember Him? So by praying to God and remembering God, then we're protected. And the greatest danger is forgetfulness of God. That's your greatest danger. You're forgetting God, then all the shields are down. And it was interesting because I was doing this talk last night, and we were talking about we want to be spiritual and we don't want to be materialistic. So how do we distinguish between a spiritual person and a materialistic person? So the real distinction is that the spiritual person is aware of God and his relationship with God, and the materialistic person isn't. So we understand that we probably are protected by God because we're trying to be devotees of God. But then the next challenge is how we can recognize that we're being protected by God, how we can see that He is protecting us. And Arjuna had a problem with that in the 11th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, because he felt threatened and overwhelmed when Krishna showed the universal form. So he started saying, "I'm sorry if I've made any offenses to you. What's the mission? What are you doing? You know, what's happening here?" He saw everybody being destroyed, flying like moths into the fire, it describes. And Krishna says, "I've come here to engage everyone." That's his mission, to engage everyone. And although it would look horrific, the annihilation of many millions of soldiers on the battlefield, but actually what was happening was those soldiers were being taken home back to Godhead. So Arjuna had to recalibrate how he was seeing things. He thought the whole thing was bad and he wanted to just renounce it. He was thinking, well, if this is for a kingdom, they can keep the kingdom. It's okay, I'll just go in the forest and beg. That's what I'll do, you know. So, but then Krishna around 180 degrees and say, no, this has to be done. And this is what's actually happening. Everyone is getting taken home. So we certainly may find ourselves in the same situation as Arjuna, that we look at what's going on around us, and we may see, we may not see that we're being protected, and we may not be able to appreciate that this is all the special mercy and blessings of Krishna. So then that's the challenge, is we humbly beg Krishna, please, can you show me what the mission is? What is it we're doing here? What is it we want to achieve? How can we do that? And then we can fall in with Krishna's plan. We have our own plan, but our plan should be, how can we fall in with Krishna's plan? So if we have that as our main plan, I mean, we may have different options in the plan, but the overall plan is, okay, what is Krishna? What is Krishna's plan? So what we have here is many prayers, and it's very intricate and complex how to achieve. And in the Bhagavatam, Burani Burikamani Shrotavyani Vibhagasa, there are many varieties of scriptures, and in all of them there are many prescribed duties which can be learned in their various divisions only after many years. Please select the essence of all these scriptures so that it will satisfy man's heart for the good of all living beings. And then the essential, if you take all those rules and those regulations and all these prayers for protection, the essence is to love and serve God and remember Him. So if you're loving, serving and remembering God, then you'll experience also God's protection. And then all the dangers are automatically taken care of. So anyway, Srila Prabhupada gave us two systems. He gave us the very simple Harinam Diksha, which is a very simple process. But he also gave us the Pancharatrika Diksha, which is a very intricate process. So you have these two different rails that we're on. And by being with the two of them, Narada Muni is recommending combine the two, and then you can remain safe, because you have the simplicity, which makes it accessible, and then you have that rigorous, exacting detail to contain your daily activities. So you have the two there, and then you're very safe in your practice of Krishna consciousness. And that's ultimately what we're looking for, isn't it? We want to practice Krishna consciousness enthusiastically. That is our greatest commodity, our enthusiasm to practice Krishna consciousness. So you need to protect it. Anything that's going to infringe or impede it, it has to be deflected. It's unfavorable. So that enthusiasm needs to be stoked, regularly stoked and fed, fueled, and very much protected. And Shiva Ramanuja explains in Shuddha Bhakti Chintamani, hold on to your enthusiasm very, very carefully, and watch out for rogues and thieves on the path that will try to steal it away from you. And so anyway, we can do each other a favor. If we're looking a bit down, or a bit sad, or a bit uninspired, then we try to encourage, we try to give them the courage to push on. And it is a very courageous thing, actually. All the devotees are great heroes. Dear Shanta Maharaj was being asked a question about what if the people you're preaching to, you think they have more faith in God than you do? So Dear Shanta Maharaj was saying, well, first of all, you should be ashamed of yourself. But then he said, don't be so hard on yourself. He said, because the fact that you've accepted that Krishna is God and you're trying to give your life to Him, that means you're a hero. So you can give yourself a pat on the back for that. And so, yeah, so it takes courage to be a soldier. And in any battle, there are casualties. And the casualties are that people give up their enthusiasm to practice Krishna consciousness. And then they open the door to all the dangers and problems of Kali Yuga. So we want to keep that door tightly closed and keep our enthusiasm very strong, and have the courage to endeavor to practice pure devotional service every day. Any questions or comments? Yes, Panchatattva.
Yeah, thanks, Prabhu. Could you explain who the rogues and thieves who are stealing enthusiasm?
Well, we've got to be politically correct when we're doing our broadcasts. And what he mentions is it's very clear. He identifies two main camps. And one of them has the Acharya, and one of them has the GBC. But he says for genuine spiritual life to take practice effectively in Kali Yuga, you need both. You need the living example, and you need a group of people who, one person may go wrong, but a whole group of people that are dedicated generally can't all go wrong, at least not over a long period of time anyway. So these are two factions which would seem to be okay, but they don't have that dynamic. So then of course there's other things as well. He refers to the quagmire of Vaishnava Aparad, which is the breeding ground for superfluous desires. So in a general sense you could say anyone that falls from practicing full-on Krishna consciousness and suddenly has so much more time. It's what we had a nice lecture once by Gauri Prabhu, who came up from the Mana. He used to be temple president at the Mana, and he called it the unemployed critic. He says we don't really want feedback from unemployed critics because they have so much time on their hands to just sit there and dwell on all the things that are going wrong and so many elaborate criticisms of people. But then that becomes the breeding ground of superfluous desires. These people find it hard to practice all the full principles of Krishna consciousness, and then the material desires. Satsvarup Maharaj refers to them as bedbugs that fatten in spring. He wrote a poem called Blooping, and it's called They Start by Finding Fault with the Fallible, and then material desires fatten like bedbugs in spring. So that's the natural consequence, unfortunately. I mean, if you really want to find out from a kind of, in a positive way, what are the things that can steal away our devotional service, then Madhura Kandamani by Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur lists 6 forms of unsteady devotional service, which we have to surpass if we want to get to the stage of Nishta, where we're chanting Nama Bas, Majjhima Adhikari, 75% of the anatas are removed from the heart. And then the 6th unsteady, Garana Tarala, Vayuddha Vikalpa, mind vacillating, struggling with sense enjoyment, Utsamai, false confidence, Tarangaranjani, you get some fame or some recognition and it goes to your head and you suddenly think you're really special now, because bhakti can bring abilities which you maybe didn't have before. So this is the path. It's a treacherous path, and Rupa Goswami explains the path is crooked and it's slippery because it has kunkam and sandalwood paste on it, so you can slip off at any point. So you need to hold on to somebody that's further up the path and who's strong in his practices, then that pulls you along. So we have Diksha and Shiksha to help us to do that. Connect with the Diksha Guru, the one whose heart is completely devoid of the propensity. And then we have Shiksha, many Shiksha Gurus to help guide us day to day, our temple authorities, and they're helping us to engage in service. So we need a whole infrastructure, actually. That's why it's the Society of Krishna Consciousness. It's not the international cave in a Himalayan mountain for Krishna Consciousness. Which cave would you like to practice Krishna Consciousness? You go to cave 47 over there, you'll be fine. It's as a society that we're practicing and spreading Krishna consciousness. And in society you have to learn how to interact and show respect to everybody, but how to take the association, how to access that resource that's there. If you have experienced devotees, that's a tremendous resource. Yes, Pip?
Hare Krishna. How can we build our faith in our authorities?
Is that how we, okay, so, wasn't Dhirashant Maharaj was saying he gets a lot of these questions, isn't it? How do we do this? Well, whatever we're doing, it has to be done enthusiastically and patiently and confidently. So you could say, how do I build up my faith confidently? You have to have faith. You have to have some faith in the beginning. That's the initial currency. You have to have a very small amount of faith. And then also we have to give up our pride. And Drishtaya Svabhava Janati Vapasasta Dosha, Rupa Goswami explains, don't look at the devotee's external, because you may think, well, the way the devotee just did that was so sloppy, you know, and that may undermine your faith in that devotee. So Rupa Goswami is saying, look at the devotee's steadiness in practicing devotional service. Try to see him from that light, not whether he has a pimple on his nose. Like when Govinda Maharaj first saw Srila Prabhupada, he was wondering why Srila Prabhupada was wearing glasses, because he'd heard so much about Prabhupada, and in the pictures he'd seen of Srila Prabhupada didn't have glasses on, and then he was wearing glasses, and he was thinking, oh, why is he wearing glasses? He shouldn't need to wear glasses. He should have, X-ray vision like Superman, and, it was a mundane idea of what he thought. So, and then he was in a kirtan, and they're all kind of, he suddenly realized that was a totally mundane way of trying to assess, a pure devotee. It doesn't mention anywhere in the Vedic scriptures that a pure devotee doesn't wear glasses. So he may have particular defects. But that's like the bubbles and foam that are in the Ganges. The Ganges are still pure. And so one should bathe in the Ganges without considering the condition of the water. And also one should bathe in the association of devotees without considering their color of skin, how well they can sing, how well they can clean the floor, peel potatoes, distribute books, whatever it is, So the challenge is, can you become qualified to cultivate that faith, or will your pride not allow you, and you'll stay with mundane vision? Shishikonitai mai pashashiki jai. I mean, it's a great blessing to be able to appreciate and love devotees. If you could do that, Mahatma was just saying he's giving a talk to this corporate. All these people have come along and they want to increase the efficiency of their business. He says he's going to ask the leaders 2 questions, and he says these 2 questions you have to answer yes to both of them, otherwise your business will never be a success. The first question: do you love your employees? And then the second question: do your employees love you? And if it's not yes for both those questions, then it's not going to be successful. And then he was saying that that one devotee was coming along visiting the temple for a long time, and in those days, after 6 months, you just joined and moved in. So they asked, "How come you're not moving in?" And he said, "Well, I like it as a guest because you get treated really nicely, but it doesn't look like you get treated so nicely when you become a devotee." So he wanted to just stay a little bit distant and a little bit aloof, and not be, because then you become rank and file, Why didn't you do this? And that is there to some degree because we're a movement. We're not just all sitting around smelling daffodils. We are actually trying to do something, So there has to be some push, but at the same time, it should be balanced with the understanding that the devotees love us and that they're doing this to help us, Sometimes it seems like tough love. One devotee was struggling to do Sankirtan, and I was thinking, oh, well, maybe he's just not cut out for it. And then another devotee suggested, well, maybe you should try this type of Sankirtan. So we tried this type of Sankirtan, and he was better than everybody else at doing that particular type of Sankirtan. Now you could think, well, why are you being so cruel? He can't do it. Just let him come back and do something else, But by him being pushed into that, he was able to realize the potential that he would never have accessed on his own. So sometimes because of our pride, we don't want to allow ourselves to get pushed out of what we consider as safe, but actually it's not safe because we're not realizing our real potential. We're not tapping into if you'd have told me 40 years ago what I would be doing in the future, I would have said that it's just not possible. There's no way I could do that. So we have our preconceived idea of what we can and what we cannot do. And so we have to be malleable and have some faith. And the longer you hang around, the more your faith will grow. So don't make any rash, premature decisions about devotees. Maybe you can't understand the devotee or appreciate the devotee right now. So maybe it will take some time. And then you can realize later. Like Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was crying when they told him this heckler had died. The heckler used to ruin every class, and he burst into tears. And the devotees thought he would be like, "Yay! At last, he's dead." And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, "They said, why are you crying, Guru Maharaj?" He said, "Because my best friend has just died." So he was able to appreciate that person was helping him to take more shelter, and so he was a friend. Because that's a very advanced. Yeah.
One thing that I find helps is that rather than, obviously we want to be able to, if we're going to give our life surrender to something, we want to be able to trust it. So one way to look at it is, well, Krishna's trusting other devotees, and he says, if you love me, then if you love my devotees, or don't try to serve me directly, serve my devotees. So we're all developing that mood. And we're all trying to gain Krishna's trust. So it helps if we think, well, why should I be trusted? So we try to gain trust from Krishna and Krishna's devotees rather than they have to seek our approval. Especially if someone, see, in one sense, being a devotee for a certain period of time gains a certain amount of trust, but it also has to be more than just the passing of time, isn't it? And we also have to bear in mind that just because we see something which is either inspiring or not inspiring, it doesn't mean to say that that's what it is. We have to check it with Guru, Sadhu and Shastra, not just with our opinion. We have to see, what does Krishna's opinion say about this?
I'm just smiling because I remember what Bhimla Prasad was saying. They were saying to Bhimla Prasad, because I actually shouldn't mention his name. I knew there was a devotee, and he was finding it hard to appreciate other devotees. And they were saying, "Prabhu, you should be like a bee, you should just look for the honey." And he said, "If I was a bee, I would starve around here." But that kind of highlights an inability to appreciate that there is honey there. And that, the bee can't really blame that on the external circumstances. It's his inability to find the honey. So that's the challenge. Can you do that? Can you be in a situation, in any situation, and still see the... Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains that real humility means that you see everybody is better than yourself. That's actual humility. We could think, well, I can see the gurus are better than me, and all the ones that turn up for Mangalarti are better than me, and the ones that do this are better than me, and the sannyasis are better than me, but I'm not sure about everybody else. But it's not, and that's not even devotees, that's just everybody. The lollipop lady down the road, the traffic warden, everyone. Everyone is better than you. That's humility. That's like, that's why it's quite an austerity. We like the idea of being humble. It sounds cool. I'd like to be humble. But putting it into practice is quite a challenge, actually, to be able to do that. If you're humble, they say that the mercy can only flow down. It doesn't really flow along, and it certainly doesn't flow upwards. So the only way you'll get the mercy is if you're lower. If you consider yourself lower, then the mercy can flow. As long as you're looking down, then how can the mercy flow? The water never flows up. It always flows down. You have to. And that Shiva Ramanuja was explaining, that's one of the symptoms of knowledge, humility and pridelessness. Then, when we get the university thing and you get your PhD, they don't ask you, right, by the way, are you humble and prideless? Not really, no. Okay, well, I'm sorry, you failed. Sorry.
It may be that we also have to learn to discriminate, that even amongst devotees, some association is good for us and some isn't. So we have to kind of determine, what association is lifting us and what is bringing us down. So typically devotees don't want to hear Vaishnava and Parad. So if someone has a tendency to do that, then we have to either say something or minimize that association. That's very important.
Yeah.
And sometimes we have to take a chance on trusting. I remember Shiva Ramanuja also saying something in that regard. There was some issue between one senior devotee and a junior devotee, and the senior devotee was trying to figure out what his motive was, and etc. And he says, you can only take things from what you see. You can't, unless someone tells you, then you won't know what the motivation is. You might think it is, but so. And if you find out later that their motivation was something different, then you can act on that. So I think trying to see the good in others is really the thing which is important for us to develop. Because as it's been self-realization, then if we find that we can't trust someone, then that can become Maya's reason to say, oh, well, I can't trust, so then I can't do this. So it doesn't really matter in one sense what anyone else is doing, it's really important what we're doing.
Yeah, it may be that you had your trust broken for one reason or another. The devotee may have hurt you very much, and so you've decided from now on, no, you've forgiven him, but you've not forgotten. So you don't condone that behavior, and so you stay a little bit distant. So that may also be there, and the trust may be broken, but then it could also be earned back. They say in the emotional bank account, for every one thing you do, you have to do 5 things to make it up. So if you've really hurt somebody and really let them down, then you're going to have to do 5 things, and then you're just back up to normal, and then you start doing more things, and then the emotional account starts to go bigger again, That's why the appreciation exercise was really, really powerful, and the whole atmosphere in the room changed. When Mahaprabhu was here, we did an appreciation exercise. So everybody has to go up and say, and as you're doing it, you've still got your little mistrusts and resentments and criticisms, but it's so overwhelmingly bright to appreciate the devotee and see them, for the amazing service that they're doing. Then that outshines, and then you think, if I mention now that, I don't like the way he blows his nose, it's going to seem so petty after all the wonderful things that I've just glorified him for. So that's a proactive way of cultivating trust, is to be able to just appreciate. Appreciation. There's gratitude and there's attitude. So if you have an attitude towards somebody, then you can turn that around and you can have some gratitude. But that's something that you have to work on, how you're processing, how you're interacting with devotees. Whenever Srila Prabhupada had a letter and it was complaining, he would always say to the devotee, so what will you do then to improve the situation? He would always turn it back on it. He wouldn't say, right, I'm going to come down, we'll kick him out, and that one, we'll send him to Siberia, and this one, that. He would always bring it back onto the devotee and say, so what are you going to do about it then? If you don't think this one is chanting his rounds, so what are you going to do then to help him, to encourage him to chant his rounds, So it's kind of there's actually, I don't know the exact, it's something to the effect that along with the ability to see a fault comes the responsibility to do something about it. So if you say the garden is really messy, there's litter everywhere, and then you could try and find who's been dropping the litter. Or you could think, well, out of all the other people that have walked past and not noticed it, for some reason, Krishna's given me the special blessing that I can see that this garden is messy. So therefore, maybe Krishna wants me to pick up the litter. You can take it like that. Oh, here's a service opportunity.
So it's a different topic. It's interesting that this verse and the other verses and probably subsequent verses, and this Narayan Kavacha has been described, like this one here, talking about the different parts of the day when we're protected, seeking protection. But we are in Kali Yuga, we have short memories, so for us to remember all these different protections in different circumstances, then we're just kindly been given the Maha Mantra in all circumstances.
Yeah.
Even to the point, I remember when I first day at Chaitanya College, first day in the temple, I seen devotees bowing down, and I was asking what they saying. They said, "Oh, just chant Hare Krishna. You can learn the other mantras later." So whatever you were doing, you were just told to just chant Hare Krishna. Of course, then later on you learned other things, but it's quite amazing to think that Lord Chaitanya's made it so easy for us that in all circumstances we just chant Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the challenge, isn't it? Can you constantly, Kirtani Asadari, can you constantly chant? It's interesting as well that, in the morning program, we have Keshava and we have Govinda looking after us. So Prabhupada set the day up in such a way that we're getting protection. We're getting multi-layered protection, actually. You go around Tulsi Devi, okay, that's just freed you from killing a Brahmin. Okay, you're eating prasadam, that's just freed you from... Someone just put a garland on you, okay, that's another million lifetimes of sins gone. Chanamrita, okay, yeah, that's not no untimely death. This, that, and that. And then if something goes wrong with a devotee, you think, well, he took Chanamrita this morning, what happened there, So then you have to see, well, now Krishna's directly dealing with the devotee. It's no longer his karma that's taking place. Now he's directly under the vigilant guidance of his father. He's not like an orphan child. He's like a beloved son who's now come back into the care of his father. So his sufferings are different from the sufferings of an orphaned child. It's directly going on between him and Krishna, whatever's taking place. So, and that's why it's hard to assess the success of the Hare Krishna movement, because it's not necessarily because the person forgets Krishna, that Krishna forgets them. And at the time of death, if they've done something substantial to help push on Lord Chaitanya, then Lord Chaitanya won't forget them, even if they've become distracted off the path. But on the subject of trust, they say a father can have 10 sons and he loves them all, but he only trusts one. So trust is a rare commodity in this day and age especially. And so it's something which we would hope to cultivate. And we can never blame the other person for not trusting us. We always have to think, well, why didn't I behave in such a way that he had more trust in me? That's the only way. You can't say, what are you doing? Why didn't you trust me, It's like, okay, well, you can command respect, but you cannot demand respect. Only if the person feels he can trust, will he trust, It's not like with the heart surgeon, you can show he's got his qualifications, then he throws you on the stretcher and then he opens you up. But in spiritual life, it's not enough to say, well, I've done 10,000 books, so just get on the stretcher, I'm going to open you up, Oh, well, sure, I think I'd like him to do it instead. But he's only done 3 books, you can't... You cannot institutionalize trust. But it's something which, I would hope that it does increase more as we get to know each other more and we cultivate that love, those loving relationships, so that the devotees love the boss and the boss loves the devotees. Jai. Okay. I'll finish there. ISKCON Guru Ki. Srila Prabhupada Ki. Gaura Premanandi. Hari Hari Bo. All of you, Ki Jai.